Hello, and thank you for watching Westferry Times. I'm Emily, and welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into something, well, pretty complex, actually. The whole London festival scene, it feels like it's really changing. We're seeing a lot of talk, arguments even about everything from environmental damage to, who these big events are actually for anymore. Is this just sort of growing pains? Or is something bigger going on, maybe a fundamental challenge to what Gen Z wants from music and culture? To help us unpack all this, I'm really pleased to have a seasoned music journalist with us who knows the UK festival circuit inside out. Welcome.
Thanks, Emily. It's great to be here. Yeah, it's a really interesting and important moment for festivals.
So let's start there. For ages, London summer festivals felt like these, well, institutions, didn't they? Cultural highlights. But lately, it feels different. There's a tension, maybe? What's your read on it?
Absolutely. They're still huge, of course, but there are definitely some significant headwinds now. You look at festivals like Wide Awake, Mighty Hoopla, they face some pretty serious legal challenges.
Right, from groups like Protect Brockwell Park, wasn't it?
Exactly. And it's gone beyond just, a few complaints about noise.
Okay, so what are the core issues then, the things driving these legal actions?
Primarily, it boils down to the environmental impact. And the general strain these massive events put on public parks, groups like Protect Brockwell Park, argue that using these spaces year after year just degrades the land. Plus, there's the disruption for local people. It
Yeah.
really raises that fundamental question, doesn't it, about balancing culture and, well, preserving shared public spaces.
You can see their point. I mean, the state of the parks afterwards sometimes, it takes time to recover. And it's not just about the ground itself, is it? There was that controversy around kneecap, too.
Yeah, yes.
Their political expression facing legal scrutiny. How does that sort of weave into this bigger picture?
Well, the kneecap situation is fascinating because it really highlights that intersection between artistic freedom and what society deems acceptable, especially in these very public settings. The scrutiny they faced, it really spotlights this ongoing debate about, what kind of messages are okay, what responsibilities artists have. It's more than just logistics. It's cultural.
Exactly. So you've got pressure from locals about the environment, the physical space, and then this other layer of scrutiny about the actual content, the expression.
Precisely. It feels like the old idea of a festival being just a weekend escape, pure fun, is being challenged from, well, multiple angles.
So it suggests maybe a growing demand for accountability, both environmentally and culturally.
I think that's a fair assessment. The idea that these huge events just happen in a vacuum, purely for entertainment, that seems to be shifting. People are questioning it more.
Okay, let's pivot a bit to the audience, specifically Gen Z. There's this feeling, isn't there, that their connection to the big traditional festival is changing. We hear they may be opting for different kinds of experiences now. What do you think is driving that?
Yeah, there seem to be several things going on. We're definitely seeing a trend towards Gen Z choosing maybe more curated experiences at home or smaller gigs. It's like they're after a different kind of connection. Maybe something less overwhelming, more
Yeah.
specific to their tastes.
That makes sense. Smaller, maybe more niche events seem really popular. And, well, we can't ignore the money side of things, can we? Ticket prices keep going up, the cost of living. Shelling out for a full festival weekend is a lot of money, especially for young people.
Oh, absolutely. It's a huge factor. When you add up the ticket, travel, maybe accommodation, food, drinks, a massive investment. And for a generation that's often quite financially aware, maybe more cautious, they really have to weigh that up. Is it worth it compared to other things they could do?
Are these big events still accessible, economically speaking? That's a fair question.
It really is.
Yeah.
And then there's the environmental consciousness we see so strongly with Gen Z.
Right. I read something about that, how a majority of them are unwilling to just leave tents behind afterwards. That really struck me.
It's a great example, isn't it? It's not just being aware of waste. It's actively deciding not to contribute to it. It shows a generation really trying to live by their values, even in their leisure time.
Yeah.
That environmental mindfulness feels much more ingrained, perhaps.
Okay, so we have pressures on the festivals themselves, environmental and cultural. And we have this key demographic, Gen Z, maybe shifting how they engage. Now, there's talk of a kind of pushback against these newer preferences. Could you call it a cultural backlash against Gen Z's values? Maybe. There's definitely some friction.
It certainly looks a bit like that sometimes. You see the resistance to using public parks for festivals and that increased scrutiny on politically active artists we mentioned. You could read that as a wider resistance to some of the values, the expressions that are strong among younger people. It's almost like a clash, isn't it, between established ways of doing things and this evolving cultural landscape shaped by youth.
Right, it goes deeper than just practical issues. And you've also talked about lineup homogenization, the fact that lots of big festivals end up booking similar acts. Why does that fail to connect with Gen Z specifically?
Well, what seems really key for Gen Z is diversity and authenticity. They've grown up with a much more varied media diet, haven't they?
Yeah.
More choice. So when festival lineups feel a bit samey, predictable, lacking that real range of sounds and voices,
Hmm.
it can just feel a bit flat, maybe inauthentic. They seem to want something more unique, more reflective of, the actual world.
Absolutely. And if they don't feel that connection, if they don't see their own diverse interests reflected.
Okay, why would they spend the time and, crucially, the money? It could definitely push them further away from those traditional formats.
So it really puts the onus back on the organizers, doesn't it? Are they actually listening? Are they adapting?
That's the critical question. Ignoring these shifts could seriously impact how relevant these big events are in the long run.
So, with all this in mind, what does the future hold for London's festivals? It feels like they're at a real crossroads. What needs to change for them to, thrive?
Adaptation seems absolutely essential. Organizers really need to properly embrace sustainability, not just token gestures, but across the board. And they need to actively diversify lineups, really think about creating spaces that genuinely reflect younger audiences' values. It's a bigger shift than just tweaking things.
And that engagement with local communities you mentioned earlier seems vital too.
Definitely. You can't just drop a massive event into a park without properly talking to and working with the people who live there.
It's about building trust, right? Being a good neighbor, addressing those environmental worries head on.
Exactly that. Open dialogue, a real commitment to lessening the negative impacts. Yeah. That's crucial for long-term survival.
So ultimately, it sounds like the festivals that succeed will be the ones that are truly inclusive, responsive to these changing values.
And genuinely forward-thinking about sustainability and community.
That seems to be the key, being adaptable.
Precisely. The ones that manage that evolution while still being exciting cultural moments, they're the ones most likely to stick around and do well.
Well, thank you so much for walking us through all of that. It's really complex, but you've shed a lot of light on it. A proper deep dive into where London's festivals are right now.
My pleasure. It's certainly a fascinating and challenging time for them.
And a huge thank you to all of you for joining us here on Westferry Times. We hope this gave you plenty to think about. Until next time, stay curious and stay engaged. Goodbye for now.